My name is Gary Strother. It's my honor to be the Chief Superintendent of the Calgary Catholic School District. Calgary Catholic is the largest Catholic school jurisdiction, publicly funded school jurisdiction in the province of Alberta. We are the third largest jurisdiction out of 61 in all of Alberta, and it's our honor to provide publicly funded Catholic education to the students of our city. We have over 56,000 students, over 6,000 staff. Over half of that staff are teachers, and 99% of those teachers are Catholic teachers. So it's very important for us to ensure that our Catholicity is strong and that what we are working with our students and permeating the subject areas at all times with our faith. So for us, the mission of Calgary Catholic is living and learning in our Catholic faith. And when we talk about the theme of this conference right now, the fact that living and learning in our Catholic faith is our mission. This is what we do on a daily basis, that we can't pretend we're someone else, that what we do, it's our mandate to ensure that we are instilling this opportunity for our students on a daily basis, that when we talk about our teachers and we talk about what they do on a daily basis, we talk about it being a vocation. It's not a job, and that we do this at all times. And if you are a Catholic teacher within Calgary Catholic, what we speak to our teachers about is the idea that you're always a Catholic teacher. It doesn't matter if you're in the classroom, you're at home, or you're in the grocery store. So that we want people to be sure that they are living their faith through their actions on a daily basis. And this is a bonus for our staff within Catholic education. It's a bonus for us to be, again, a Catholic education opportunity because it's all about us having something further than the 3 R's. This isn't just about reading, writing, or arithmetic. It's all about ensuring that our kids are living a life that, as they go on into the future, they're going to be contributing members to society, but they're going to do that in a faithful way, in a Christian way. And that's so very different than just moving on in their life. We have to be mindful and deliberate in what we do at all times. And again, we have to ensure that our students are getting the best of all that we have to offer within our academics and in our faith. We have to bring students to the beauty and the goodness and the truth of our faith as well. And I think we get a chance to do that at all times. We want to bring them to the beauty first. And if we're bringing to the beauty of Catholicity, we have an opportunity to show them through icons and the beauty of many, many things, of stained glass windows, of our beautiful churches, those types of things. But on top of that, the beauty of the opportunity for them to show in so many different ways that to be a good person is to show that beauty as well, to be giving, to be loving. One of the interesting ways about the beauty of our faith sometimes comes in death, and the way that people respond to that, and how they grieve with others, and how they come together as community to make it to work with people, to show them that they care and be part of a community. So that beauty, if we can bring people in through that beauty into our faith, then the goodness and the truth will come as we go forward. So we have to keep faithful to bringing faith to our students at all times, and we have to ensure that if we do that well, we know that our families are relying on us to do that. So I'm so pleased to be part of this conference. I'm so pleased to be part of looking at something that talks about being faithful in this post-Christian society and this challenge that we have these days. And I think the Calgary Catholic is doing that in a very strong way.
Well, thank you and good morning. It's such an honor to be part of this distinguished group. It really is a pleasure to be able to talk to you today about education, about what's going on with Calgary Catholic, excuse me, and education across the province of Alberta. And I know we have some educators in the room from different jurisdictions, which is a real treat as well. And I hope what I say up here is all true in your jurisdictions as well. So I didn't tell Kent I was going to do a bit of a secondary title of this, burden or bonus. And I'm going to get into the burden or bonus a little later as we get into the talk here. But I want to talk about today what schooling looks like in Alberta and how does that look like in this post-Christian society, and what we're facing as we move forward as a Catholic jurisdiction, a publicly funded Catholic jurisdiction. And there is a distinction there. So we're one of only 3 provinces that do have publicly funded Catholic education, ourselves, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and a lot of challenges in all those provinces, including Alberta, in keeping it publicly funded, and that's a big deal. There's 61 public jurisdictions in Alberta, a third of them are Catholic, and there's about 185,000 students. Now I'm going to show you a video in just a second, and it's going to have a little different numbers. The video is a little behind the times, but that's what we know to be true at this point right now. Calgary Catholic, as mentioned, we're, as of this year, 56,500 students, so we continue to grow. And that we have 115 schools. We're the largest Catholic jurisdiction in the province, and that we have over 6,000 staff, and over half of those are teachers. And for our staff, if you are going to be a teacher in Calgary Catholic, you have to be Catholic. You have to be a practicing Catholic. And if there are very few of our teachers who are not, and it comes in courses that we just can't quite cover, and that might be some of the CTS, career technology studies, those types of things that are a challenge to find people in. So we're about 99% though of our staff is actually Catholic. So I'm going to show you a little video here that CBC put together a little while ago on how Catholic education got to Alberta and why it's publicly funded.
About 1 in 4 kids attends Catholic school. That's more than 160,000 students. Now, we're not talking about private religious schools here. We're talking about a whole system of Catholic education, fully funded by taxpayers to the tune of $1.6 billion a year and complete with separately elected school trustees. Only 3 provinces still have education systems like this: Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. Why? It has to do with history, politics, and the Constitution. Check out Section 93 of our country's founding legal document. It guarantees the right to separate religious schools to any class of persons who already had them when Canada became a country. This was a way to keep the 2 dominant religious groups at the time happy. It meant Catholics and Protestants could each educate their kids according to their own beliefs, even if they found themselves in a religious minority in a particular area. But wait, you might say, Alberta wasn't a province at Confederation, so why does this apply to us? Well, the Alberta Act of 1905, which created the province, included a similar provision. It guarantees education rights that existed at the date of the passing of this act. That mainly means Catholic schools, but it also means Protestants can have their own separate schools in Catholic-dominated areas. It does not apply to other faith groups, however, who didn't come to Alberta in large numbers until much later. Fast forward more than a century, and this is still the law of the land. The same doesn't apply, though, in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, and BC, which didn't have separate systems when they joined Canada. The other 3 provinces did have separate systems for a while, but opted to get rid of them. Manitoba did it way back in 1890. Quebec did it in 1997, and Newfoundland and Labrador became the latest to do it in 1998, following a referendum on the issue. In Alberta, there hasn't been the same push to abolish the Catholic system. But in late 2017, Alberta bishops warned those calls are growing ever louder after Catholic educators clashed with the NDP government over sex ed curriculum. Even if Alberta wanted to, getting rid of the Catholic system would be no small task. Both the provincial and federal governments would have to agree to make a constitutional amendment. In the meantime, it remains a right and a popular choice for many parents. Enrollment in Catholic schools is growing 36% faster than Alberta's enrollment as a whole.
That's an interesting point a lot of people aren't aware of, is that we continue to grow faster than any other jurisdictions in the province. And that's a beautiful thing for Catholic education. There's a lot of people choosing Catholic education, and they're not just Catholics. And I'll talk a bit about that as well. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. And when we talk about becoming a teacher in Calgary Catholic, we talk about it being a vocation and not a job. And that's really important to us. There's the fact that everybody knows the what. They know what they do. Some people know how they do it, but do they really know why they do it? And we want to make sure that if you're going to become a Catholic teacher and you're going to really be part of Calgary Catholic, or any Catholic teacher in this province, I would hope, is that you're connected to the why. And if you're connected to the why, you're going to treat it a whole lot differently. You want to make sure you understand what that true why is of Catholic education, and that you're always a Catholic teacher. It doesn't matter whether you're in the school or in the grocery store. It's important that you understand your role as a Catholic teacher at all times, and you're showing that by your actions. And that's so very important. Bishop Henry once told us during one of our faith days, he said, you can't be a Catholic in the house and then when you walk out of the house, you're not Catholic any longer. And you can't be a Catholic teacher in public or outside, just inside the school. You have to be a Catholic teacher inside the school and outside the school. And you need to show people that that's what we stand for and that's what we do. The why for Calgary Catholic is living and learning in our Catholic faith. This is our mission statement, and this is what we hope that all of our staff live by. And that's not just our teachers. We are living and learning in our Catholic faith at all times. And when I say not just our teachers, I mentioned that there's about 3,200 teachers in Calgary Catholic. The rest are support staff, caretakers, all kinds of people that work for us. And we ask them to understand our Catholic philosophies and that you're working for a Catholic organization, so a faith-filled organization. So we invite all of our staff to what we call Faith Day. It happens once a year. We bring everybody together at the BMO Center, and that's an opportunity to share. We have the bishop come out, and we've had different types of celebrations. We do a litany of the hours right now. It's absolutely beautiful opportunity. We have a guest speaker come out. We talk about faith the entire day, but that's the entire district. That's not just our teachers, and that's really important to understand. Archbishop Miller from Vancouver talks about authentic Catholicity. A school's authentic Catholicity is found in the vital witness of its teachers and administrators. With them lies the primary responsibility for creating a Christian school climate as individuals and a community. That we do have challenges. We have challenges in Alberta, we have challenges in our schools, there's no question. Start with our families, more and more are not Catholic. That is a challenge, but it's also a beauty of what we get to do. But it is a challenge as we go forward. Sometimes it's mom or dad that is Catholic, that allows them to come into a Catholic school. Sometimes it's just the kids, and at times it's nobody. We have to be aware of that right now. But we also should be aware that Catholic schools aren't just for Catholics. And there's a great article that was written by Bishop William that I'm going to talk about in just a couple of moments. Families have chosen us to teach their children the beauty of our faith. And we know that people choose schools for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's just out of convenience. It's the closest one to their home. But we know for the most part, if you're going to choose a Catholic school, you're choosing it because you want a faith-based education and you want to understand the beauty of our faith. With our staff, one of the challenges sometimes are they all on board. I mentioned we have 3,200 teachers in our district. They're all on various parts of their faith journey. They're all moving through that process, just like every one of us in this room is. And as they go through that process, they question at times. And when they question at times, that can become a challenge. But we have to really work with them at all times to ensure that they are living their Catholic faith, again, by their actions. We started something just this year, and we've worked it through all of the jurisdictions in the province. We've decided that we will have a covenant for our administrators, that our administrators, if you're going to be an administrator in our schools, then you must sign a covenant. And that covenant is an opportunity to talk about how you're aspiring to follow all the tenets of your faith. And this is something that's brand new for us, and other districts are implementing it slowly across the province. But if you want to apply to be an administrator in Calgary Catholic, you have to sign this covenant that tells us, again, you're going to aspire to work through all the tenets of your faith. Our leaders have to be authentic, and they have to understand what they're doing. And everything in a school starts with the principal. So when we move out to our 115 schools, we have 115 principals. If they are not living their faith, it doesn't flow down the way that it should. And that's a real challenge. So we've said to our administrators, if you want to become an administrator with us, you need to look at this covenant carefully. If you can't sign it, that creates a conversation. Because the covenant isn't just a thou shalt and bang, the door shuts. It's also an opportunity for reconciliation. So you may not have been married in the church, and at this point, there's an opportunity to fix that if you'd like. So there's different opportunities to work through anything that you need to. Again, it's an aspirational document, but it's also a document of reconciliation. One of the challenges, secular society. We have our detractors, there's no question. We have attacks on Catholic education constantly. I've been in Calgary Catholic for 35 years. I have not known a year where there hasn't been attacks on Catholic education. So what's happening now isn't new. A lot of people say, this is the worst it's ever been. We've had, I remember years ago where we were all in the corral. There was thousands of us in the corral with placards and banners and speaking up for Catholic education. That was probably 25 years ago. And it comes in waves and it moves forward in and out. So it's happening all the time. There's a real focus on secular society, say, is it fair? They look at the economics. That's always a big one with the economics, and they look at the relevance of having a faith-based education. That's a challenge. That's a challenge in a secular society. So when they talk about economics, the economic piece doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It makes some sense in some small rural communities where two schools are open, a Catholic school and a public school, when they're having trouble filling those schools. You look at a place like Calgary, though, or surrounding Calgary, we don't have space. We just don't have space. You saw the numbers that we have right now. We need more schools right now because we're growing and the schools that we have are full. And there's a true lack of understanding of who we are within secular society. So people look at us and they think we're some sort of cultish type of thing. They're not getting exactly who we are. They don't understand our pastoral nature. Again, they look at us and they say black and white, and they don't understand that we come from a pastoral way. That when we look at everyone, we see the face of God in every child that we see, and that's so important. Every parent that we work with, every staff member that we have, if we're not looking for that face of God in them, we're not doing our job. And that's that pastoral nature that has to come naturally to us. Secular society may not want to be part of any religion, so they don't want us to be part of it either. That's part of our challenge. And that sounds like kind of a weird one, but that's a reality of what kind of society that we're living in right now. But it has been for a long time. And they don't care to see our truth and our goodness and our beauty. And I want to talk a bit more about that in a couple of moments, but they're not looking for that. And that's all we're looking for as we move forward. There's a current attack right now by the PSBAA. That's the Public School Boards Association of Alberta. And this is just hot off the press. This is just I think it was last Thursday, they came out with a document that speaks to a project charter called Together for Students. And their sole goal is a complete focus on creating a single school system. They want to do away with Catholic education. They want everybody to be all in one large group. And this is kind of interesting coming from a group like that. They're arguing that education in Alberta has changed dramatically since 1905, when the charter said that we could have Catholic schools. 1905 is nothing compared to what we'll talk about in a moment. I mean, that's minutes, that's seconds. The wholeness of Catholic education, this is the article that I mentioned that Bishop William had written in the Carillon. This was something that we were just, when we saw it at first, we thought this is wonderful piece of writing that was really meant a lot to us. Catholic schools aren't just for Catholics alone or exclusively advocate the Catholic faith. School communities for all, but rooted in a Catholic worldview, that ethos, the identity that serves to inform a wider view of educating our young people. It offers experiences of learning that allow for evangelization and a catechetical support for young people in their faith. It promotes a holistic experience. That's what we're trying to give our kids, a holistic experience. It's preparing them for life, to appreciate the value of life and others. We've heard a lot about that opportunity to have what we heard earlier, that opportunity for killing. Well, I mean, that's something that for us, it just blows us away. But that's that value of life, offering back to society values and goods they willingly share for the benefits in our society. And even though there's hostility towards religion, schools serve as a continual recognition of the importance of religion and a belief in civic society. So looking at that and looking at our schools and understanding that we want to bring everyone together. We want to be inclusive. We want to be a place where people want to come, and even though you're not Catholic, if you do come into our schools, our parents, when we talk to them about you're going to be in a faith-based community. You have to go to Mass. You have to go to religion class. You have to be part and understand that faith is permeated into all that we do. We heard Jerry Turcotte talk about that last night and say that in his university, it's not just a 2 or 3 credit course. This is fully permeated into all that they do, and that's what we do on a daily basis within Catholic education. A post-Christian society values individual freedoms, except at times where it includes religion. And this is kind of interesting because we heard last night where kids from going into university, grade 12 students that were in church or going into university, and after the second year, 7 of 10 are not going to church any longer. And that's sometimes that opportunity at that age to kind of now explore and see different things, and now first time kind of away from mom and dad as well, and it is a challenge. You can't be a Christian in isolation though, because we have a communal faith, and so we have to be together and we have to be around others to make us better, and that's so important in our faith. We also have the transcendentals, the ultimate desires of humanity. I mentioned earlier that what is true, what is good, and what is beautiful. And within Catholic education, what a great opportunity to be able to live this and to teach this on a daily basis. It was then and it is now. This has always been what it's been about. This goes back so far, and the understanding that if we can live that truth and that beauty and that goodness, it makes such a difference for us. There's a little video clip that I'm going to show you a couple of minutes from Bishop Robert Barron that's going to speak to this.
I think that's a good way to evangelize today. Begin with the beautiful. So, begin with Charles. Begin with Saint-Chapelle. Begin with the life of St. Francis of Assisi. Begin with the Mother Teresa sisters in Calcutta. Begin with Merton's Seven-Story Mountain. Don't moralize, don't intellectualize. And the beautiful, I think, will work a kind of alchemy. Hans von Balthasar, one of the great theologians of the 20th century, took this very seriously. The aesthetic starting point. He said, the beautiful seizes you, it changes you, and then it calls you and sends you. So, you see a beautiful movie, and it affects you, it's changed you. You want to participate in that world, and you want to tell people about it. You become an evangelist of the beautiful. I think today, especially in our postmodern culture, it's so relativistic, it's so suspicious of claims to the good and the true. It's wise for the church, and of the Catholic Church, our genius is that we've embraced the beautiful. We haven't destroyed the icons. We haven't knocked down the buildings. We've kept the beauty. Start with that. Start with that. Draw people into it. And then I think you'll find in time the good and the true kind of take care of themselves.
Begin with the beautiful. Show them our beauty first. Dr. Turcotte also talked last night. He hit all the transcendentals last night when he was talking about St. Mary's University. He talked and he began with the beautiful. What did he talk about? He talked about the St. John's Bible, this beautiful Bible that's been done in calligraphy, the first time that's happened in 500 years. He talked about the water tower. He talked about the beauty of the stained glass. He talked about the art gallery inside, all the beauty that surrounds. There's so many good things. He talked about the good in terms of the students and the volunteerism and what's working for the kids there at that school. He was kind of upset because only 4 people had signed up, and overnight another 175 signed up. And amazing what they're doing there in terms of the good and in terms of the true. On a daily basis, they get to talk about the truth. They get to talk about faith. They get to talk about religion, and they get to do that on a daily basis. We need to affect that, what he talked about, that work a kind of alchemy. I love that idea that we make this transformational change as we go forward here. And that Catholic Church, it embraces the beautiful. This is what we do. This is, he calls it the genius of the Catholic Church, this opportunity to embrace the beautiful. When we look at seeing beauty, sometimes it's even in our own struggles, even in death. And for Calgary Catholic, this is something that we go through a lot, obviously with 6,000 staff, with all of the families, all the people, celebrating his community. I have no idea how a school would get through a death in a school of a child or a staff member or a staff member's family without faith. How do you do that? I mean, we have an opportunity to celebrate together. We have an opportunity to talk about it out loud. We bring people in, we bring counselors in, we bring a critical incident response team is what we call it, but that's a faith-based team. It's led by a faith leader. And we come into our schools and we have prayers opportunities. We have all kinds of opportunities together. This is an example. I just want to show you some examples of the beautiful here. St. Ambrose and St. Francis schools had a tragedy about 2 or 3 weeks ago where the parents of a St. Francis teacher and a St. Ambrose teacher, their daughter tragically died at about 20 years old. And these were teachers that a lot of people knew. They were big in the community. They knew them a lot. And what happened here on the left-hand side are about 10 principals that wanted to celebrate and have an opportunity for the staff to get together and grieve together. So on the right-hand side is the St. Ambrose staff having lunch together, and that's the entire staff. That's the support staff, everybody. That doesn't happen in a school very, very often. If you're not part of a school community, lunchtime is a zoo. Lunchtime is an opportunity for things all over the place and people all over the place and helping kids open up cheese sticks and all those types of things. Somebody's got to do that. So the entire staff is together, grieving together and having a lunch together and breaking bread together. These are principals from 10 other schools that came and did the supervision. They bought the lunch. They did everything for the school to do that. The same thing happened in St. Francis where another school bought the lunch for the staff and they didn't have to do the supervision piece because it's a whole lot different in senior high. But what a beautiful opportunity to show the beautiful. This is a bereavement box that one of our teachers, her sister had her child die of SIDS about a year ago at 1 year old. And she creates these bereavement boxes. And when the teacher heard about this particular family and this young girl, Jessica, she made sure that her sister had a bereavement box sent to them. It's got all kinds of things that are beautiful reminders for that family, that an opportunity to grieve. And it's just a beautiful opportunity for people, again, to celebrate together. This has just happened recently. This is a cross-country run, and the two girls on the left, they don't even know each other. They're from different schools, but the girl on the far left, uncontrollably, her nose was bleeding, and the girl on her side that put her arm around her is from a different school, running in the same race, made sure that she got a whole bunch of Kleenex together, and then they ran the race together, arm in arm, coming in. That's the beautiful in Catholic education. This is another cross-country day, a different day, but this girl with cerebral palsy, the girls all made a pact that they're going to run the last 200 meters with her coming in together. So they all finished the race completely together, joined at the arms, and coming in with this young lady that couldn't run the whole race. These are some of the beautiful things that happen in our school district, that the art that the kids create. This one was done by a 10-year-old. Yeah, and the different opportunities for us to have this art at our central office. All the art in our central office is done by kids. We have the most amazing children's art gallery in the world, and we change it every single year. But every time we're in an office or in a hallway, we know who we work for because it's the children that's created this art. This is inside our schools. This is, again, the beauty. You can see the obvious religious on the top there, the 3 crosses on the top. They're built into all through our schools when we create schools and when our architects come in. This is our new high school at the far end of what they call Main Street. You can see the cross built into the window in 2 ways. One is through shaded glass, and then one is the cross itself. And a lot of other places in the school, crosses are built in very subtly, but very purposefully throughout the school. So we build it right into the architect of our schools. I mentioned burden or a bonus. As a Catholic superintendent and being in the largest Catholic jurisdiction in the province, I have my friends from other jurisdictions talk to me a lot about, isn't it tough to be a Catholic superintendent? Isn't it way harder? You already have Alberta education, you already have trustees, you already have parents, you already have staff, you already have students, but on top of that, you got the bishop in the church. And I know there's bishops in the room. The reality is, it's not a burden, it's a bonus. We have clear direction and focus. We have something to aim for that isn't just the 3 R's. We have a moral compass that guides us. And we have a resource and support in our bishops at all times. We have examples. What would Jesus do is just a simple one, but that's an easy example. We have stories we can fall back on, the parables, the goodness and the beauty of our faith that we can fall back on. We have a rule book that's over 2,000 years old. People are saying 1905, it's time to change. What are you talking about? We've been doing this for 2,000 years. It's not going to change. We have the strength of tradition. Busy Lives and Restless Souls is a book by Becky Eldridge. It's the principles of Ignatian spirituality helps with prayer tools. We've given this to all of our administrators to work in our schools. She says, I find relief in the credibility of a spirituality that survived this long and continues to speak to people today. And that's only 500 years old. In a time when commitments and longevity are rare, it's a comfort in knowing that the approach to prayer in life is not a latest trend, but one survived and still thrives. Our Christian community, often for our families, it begins in our schools. They're microcosms of society. It's a catch-all. You come into a school, it's a catch-all for everything that comes in from society. But it can be an entry point for children into the church, and we're finding more and more a rebirth of their parents back into the church as well. And we have a huge emphasis of that triad, that home, church, and parish is gigantic for us, and we preach it constantly. The tools of evangelization, the schools can be the entry port. We bring them into the community. It's the beauty of being loved by community. It's the good that we do in our community, and we want to teach them the good news. We want to teach them the truth. So we ask, how do Catholic schools survive in a post-Christian society? We have to. Thank you very much. So I guess if it...
In Ontario, a number of Muslim parents send their children to Catholic schools. Is this happening in Calgary, and is it having an effect on the Catholic foundations of your schools?
You know, it's not happening a lot. It's happening a little, but not a lot. And what some families of different religions are doing is they're looking to any faith-filled opportunity. If you are going to come to a Catholic school, parents are told right up front that you have to understand the Catholic faith and you have to be part of and celebrate with us. So it's not a trend, I'll call it, but it is a trend of people of other faiths looking to Catholic schools to come and be part of a faith-filled community because they're not getting it in public schools. Yes.
So I'm not exactly sure of the situation here in Alberta, that's why I'm glad you're here, but I know the way things are in Ontario. I'm a professor of education, I've done research in this area. So with our publicly funded Catholic schools in Ontario, I believe that they're better for many of the things that you've said.
Not than Alberta.
In Ontario, they're better than the publicly funded.
I wanted to clear that. I want to make sure
I don't know. Good one. That they're better than the public option for many of the reasons that you profess.
And totally agree, totally agree.
Well, the test scores,
Yep.
standardized test scores show it.
Same in Alberta.
And they're a bit cheaper as well. So people who think that they're more expensive, in fact, when auditors go in, when there's a public board that's not performing well, the first thing they do is they look at a comparative Catholic board and they find efficiencies there. Because the funding formula is not exactly equal, it's a little bit less. We do more with less. And I believe that there are places where children essentially learn that they learn about Christ and they learn that they are loved, and I think that they're good communities and environments. That said, being a professor of education, you being a superintendent, we have to take a look at data to prove that our children are meeting certain standards when they're leaving. So we know that, we heard yesterday, 7 out of 12 joined the ranks of the nuns. We also know, and I've done my own research on this, that children from kindergarten to grade 12 are in our Catholic schools, but they leave, they can't explain the Trinity. They can't explain transubstantiation. They don't know basic catechetical truths. So from that standpoint, could we not argue that there's some sort of huge failure in the publicly funded Catholic systems? We have kids for 5.5 hours a day from K to 12, and they leave with very, very minimal knowledge of the church, of the faith, and specifically catechetics. Don't you think that we have to go beyond knowing that we start that, you know, God is love and Jesus Christ is there and we are loved and we're part of community. But we require a little bit more as Catholics. So can you speak to that? And what evidence can we use to show that this happened? Because the evidence doesn't look good right now.
And the evidence is hard to get to, right? Because I know that we have standards that we have to look at with Alberta education. We have accountability pillars. We have all kinds of things that we have to do that everybody has to do. And on top of that, for our Board of Trustees, we ensure that we're looking even further and even deeper into that. I know one of our trustees is sitting at the back right now, and they're, you know, it's interesting you say that sometimes, or as well, that spending money better. The fiduciary responsibilities of our trustees are, they're so good at ensuring that we're doing the best we can with the money that we have, and because we know we're under a bigger microscope. So can we do better on the catechism? I think we can do better on that. Are we looking to see what it looks like? We are, but some of the things that we try to measure are difficult to measure. How do you measure if a child is leaving and that is their understanding of Christ is where it should be? It's really difficult to see where people can be in that. So what we're doing is, again, showing through actions and showing through the types of things that we're identifying with them at all times, that this is the way it should be, this is the way it can be. Whether they pick it up or not, I mean, that's the same with everything else. We only have a certain amount of day that we can teach religion. We do, as I mentioned, we permeate it into everything that we do. So all our subject areas, it comes inside. But we have tight timelines because of the basic overalls of the province. So I get what you're saying 100%. Can we make it better? We probably could make it better, but I think we're doing a pretty good job with the kids that are coming through the system. But it is a great question. Yes?
Gary, are you aware that the National Catholic Education Association in the United States has specific tests that test those very issues, those very things that have been using for many years? Have they been brought to your attention yet?
And they haven't,
They
no.
will be on Monday.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right.
I don't know why the context completely of that CBC clip. I find that a very dangerous clip.
Yeah, me too.
Just the way it's constructed and what it says.
Mhm.
You look at the kind of graphics within it, and you look at the words that are emphasized. What's the number one word you come away with? Abolish. Get rid of. Task. History old. I'd be very careful about that, showing that thing to anybody.
This is the only
Maybe
place.
That's the reason why.
This is the only place I've ever shown it, to be
Yeah,
perfectly honest.
CBC
Yeah.
is not our friend.
No question.
You know, but I think that also shows very clearly how we have to develop our own materials at a very high level to respond to this. And while, and I don't know how, and there are lots of people, young Catholics, who are capable of doing that. And I think this is incumbent too upon our leadership, our intellectual leadership, to support and also shape that.
No.
You know, because the message, you know, the medium is the massage, said our great Catholic prophet, Marshall McLuhan, and we have to respond to that.
No, it's a fair statement, and we don't use that clip
Well, I didn't think
outside.
you did. I just
But it was interesting for this audience to give an overall, and I know we have people from different provinces and what have you here. The nice part of the clip is that idea that they're growing faster than. So that's a bonus piece of that clip, but it almost sounds like it's scary too when they even talk about that it's growing faster. So it is, no.
Gary,
Yes.
what I'm really interested in is, what kind of a feedback do you get from the Catholic parents of the children in your school? Do they support more or less? Do they, in other words, do they want the Catholic education to be emphasized more, or are they opposed to it? What is the trend with the parents?
The trend with the parents is that we're doing a good job, and that we don't have many coming in saying, push it harder, push it harder. We have a lot saying that they're happy with the communities that are being built. Again, we have 115 schools. They build 115 different communities inside, but it's all living and learning in our Catholic faith. So it's all under that umbrella. And I think our parents are pretty happy with what we're doing currently, and that they're not pushing us to be way one way or way the other way. And it's very, very rare, I got to tell you too, because again, we're not 100% Catholic students. We're very high. Our percentage of Catholic students is probably high 80s, somewhere in that percentage. But we don't get a whole lot of pushback from our non-Catholics saying this is too much, and I don't want my child going to religious services. I don't want them being part of this. So it's not a big push one way or the other.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Just turning to that piece that Kent mentioned about the standardized testing. At CatholicEducation.org, which is Canadian, and they have a 50-question confirmation test for the bishops in the room, because I recall that when I did my confirmation, we had to pass a test. The first question, true or false, sex in marriage is beautiful, true or false? Well, I knew sex in marriage was allowed. So I guessed true, and I guess I passed. I have 5 kids to prove it. Anyway, the point is that this notion that we have standardized testing de rigueur in the provincial side, requiring accountability, and back to Christian's point or other people in this area, and the marriage between parish and school, I often think that we're missing an opportunity, because tests are actually an educational, it's pedagogy. It actually allows a kid, wow, I didn't know that, I got a correction. I mean, there's an opportunity, and it's not hard, it's a knowledge test, it's not a faith commitment test, which is often the reason that they're objected to. But I'm often wondering if maybe there's a better partnership there, because the pastors in the room would certainly know the great dilemma of confirming kids at grade 8 or whatever the case may be, who can't identify the 3 persons in the Trinity.
We do standardized tests, though, within the district, grade 5, grade 8, grade 12. So we do have standardized testing within. In religion, yes. Yeah, so that's what I meant. So, I mean, we have the basics in grade 6, 9, and 12 for the basic provincial, but grade 5, 8, and 12, we also do standardized testing in religion.
In Ontario, no.
They don't do that in Ontario?
They do not.
I think we're a little better. Yes.
I'm very glad to hear of the covenant for Catholic administrators. I guess my question is, are you considering extending that to teachers, at least for incoming new teachers? I mean, I can see there could be contract issues with ones that have permanent status and so on.
We have the ability contractually to, when we do hire, that you have to be a Catholic teacher. Our teachers have to get a letter from their priest stating that they are a practicing Catholic. So when you come into our district, that's number 1. And we don't even look at you unless you're a specialty that we can't fill, and that's very, very rare. The covenant piece itself, this is pretty new for us right now, and with our administrators, it's even reaching out a little bit there too, but we believe we have that right to do that. And again, we're not making it a black and white document. It is a reconciliation type document as well, because again, people are on different paths, and we're trying to get them to that, especially the leaders. You want to teach technology in a school, your principal better be somebody who's pushing technology in your school, or else it's not going to happen. You want faith to be rolling down to the entire staff, your principal, it has to start there. So we know that happens inside schools. That's why we're starting with our administrators. And it's not just our principals, but our vice principals, our assistant principals as well. So coming into it again, the beauty part of this is that if I have someone that says, I can't sign this document, then we have a conversation. Why can't you sign this document? And we move forward from there. Because again, you're still in a Catholic school, you're still teaching in a Catholic school, why can't you sign that? But we're starting with administrators. Will it go down to teachers at some point? It may, but that's a ways down the road. But I appreciate the sentiment. Yes?
Would you just give a comment on how you see the ATA? Would you consider that more positive or a negative influence, and then just some feedback?
Negative influence to Catholicity?
Yeah.
So the ATA, our Alberta Teachers Association, is kind of interesting in that they oversee all teachers in the province. And you've heard here about 1/3 of their teachers are Catholic teachers. Do they push as hard for Catholicity as they should? The answer is no. I'll tell you that right now, that their leadership is not heavily focused on Catholic education. And that's a challenge for us. They're the ATA locals, they're all different, but they are influenced by the ATA provincial. And a lot of our ATA locals are pushing hard on things like being part of the Gay Pride Parade and marching in the parade and trying to get teachers to be part of things like that, creating GSAs within teacher groups, those kinds of things. So the ATA is not, in my mind, a positive influence on Catholic education at this time. And we're pushing hard to say 1/3 of your members are Catholic. How come you're not supporting them the same way that you support others? So we're working on that right now, but it's a great question. Yes.
I was also sort of bothered by the CBC clip, by the tone of it. And in particular, I'm from Newfoundland, and when they mentioned Newfoundland kind of attracting Catholic education, I remember going through that. I was in school, and in grade 11, we had Catholic education. In grade 12, through the summer, they'd come down and strip down all the crosses and pictures of things. I remember sitting in class and seeing the outline of the cross on the wall in paint.
Yeah.
And it really was a moment that kind of stuck with me. And I remember the referendum at that time, the reason why people voted that way is because the public opinion was, well, there's no difference. There's no difference between Catholic and public education. They're pretty much the same. So why would we pay for both? And if the pedagogy being employed is foundationally rooted in postmodernism and relativism, which it is, because even the Catholic teachers who are coming out of school are being indoctrinated by postmodernists and Marxists and all of this, then there's going to be no difference in what's being taught in a Catholic school versus what's being taught in a public school. And so in the Calgary Catholic separate board, is there any push towards pedagogy being foundationally rooted in faith, as opposed to just having faith in the school? Even just what's being taught is rooted in faith.
Within all of our courses, we ensure, I mentioned earlier, that our faith is permeated into everything that we do. So you're teaching social studies and you're teaching a specific area of social studies, you need to make sure that you understand the Catholic viewpoint of that. And I use social studies, science, those are two big ones where it really comes into play a lot. So we have an instructional services department that is unbelievable in terms of the quality of people that are working through it, and the leadership of Andrea Holoka is our superintendent right here. Put up your hand, Andrea. She's our superintendent of instructional services. This group is ensuring that our curriculum is infused with what we need to have, and we make sure that our teachers understand what that is. So for us, it's a really important part of what we do. I get what you're saying 100%. If we do everything the same as CBE, why aren't we CBE? Why aren't we just under the same umbrella? But we're not. And it's not just about a half-hour religion period a day. It's about ensuring that all of our teachers understand whatever course they're teaching has to be infused with that Catholicity.
Does that look like, would that be like deprogramming the teachers from what they learn in education faculty?
And as I mentioned earlier, 3,200 teachers, they're all at different parts of their faith journey, and they were all taught a certain way, right? And for the most part, a lot of them were taught in Catholic schools. So when you say it like that, it sounds like they've got to be completely deprogrammed. But I mean, I grew up in Quebec, where it was taken out much after I had left Quebec. And actually, I was a superintendent, an area superintendent in Alberta, and didn't even know that was happening at the time. It was so quiet in Quebec. That was amazing. And I grew up in a community where the church was the center of the community, where everybody was an altar boy, everybody was in the choir, everybody was those types of things. And all of a sudden it disappears. And now in Quebec, I saw a news piece where there's a church that is now a trampoline club because it had nice high ceilings. And they're selling off their churches right now, which is unbelievable. I never thought that would happen. But Quebec, I know the research right now looks at Catholicity as being stable or just growing if you take Quebec out of the equation. You keep Quebec in the equation and Catholicity is going down in the country. So it's really interesting looking at where Quebec stands itself. But I grew up in Catholic schools. I came through that. I've only worked in Calgary Catholic. So for me, I didn't have to be deprogrammed. It was something that I always knew there was something different, and there was something at the end as opposed to just what was going on here. I've got some people at the back here. Yes, Thomas.
Actually kind of following Doug, but also linked to Ryan Kaufman's talk last night, and what you said in your PowerPoint about founding a Catholic worldview from the bishop's talk. Is there any higher level discussion in Catholic education in leadership circles in Alberta that you might know? You're talking about, how we are giving good faith across the curriculum used to be a phrase we heard, right? That was your answer. But what about if the curriculum itself is the poison or the acid that is causing the relativism, the scientism, all these postmodern isms? And I teach high school religion. I see it every day. I'm constantly fighting it. But we are not giving the students the very basic tools. We say read, write, arithmetic, but what about the trivium that used to be? That's what we did. Catholic schools did it around the world, and we know that if we give students the opportunity, whether they're Christian or not, say like John Senior down at Kansas Integrated Humanities Program, you give them the richness of of civilization, and they want to be Catholic. Well, why? Truth be to goodness, but we're so plugged into a secular curriculum, postmodern curriculum, and now the new curriculum is going to be less content and just a bunch of abstract postmodern what would be ideological phrases. How are we really giving them a Catholic worldview? It's wonderful you do the things our school district does, very good things, but it seems like we're almost lipsticking a pig, because the meat of what we do is teaching, and education is teaching in a class, and yet the very stuff that we're supposed to teach in most classes is actually acidic against what we are, the world we want to.
Sounds awful. I got to tell you, there's a reality to the new curriculum as well. This new curriculum is a concept-based curriculum. It's something that will have less content in it, which is a good thing for us as far as I'm concerned. That's our opportunity to fill in the blanks. That's our opportunity to work with our teachers in order to look at the concepts that make sense within our faith. So I get what you're saying 100%. But it's up to us, and again, that's where our instructional services department comes into play, where we have experts in all of our subject areas. And again, this is with Calgary Catholic, and I know we're a large school jurisdiction, so we have the bodies to be able to do these things and the expertise, but we share as much as we possibly can, and we've got some great organizations that help that sharing. I know Dean is with the ACSDA, that's part of that, and of course with our superintendents, there's a CCSSA, so that's the Catholic Superintendents. We are meeting on a constant basis. We're working together to make sure we have common language, common understandings, and we're sharing everything we possibly can. So the beauty of Catholic education in Alberta is that we share everything, and we move towards this new curriculum, whatever is happening. I mean, the new curriculum in terms of sex education, those kinds of things that are coming forward, the health and wellness curriculum, those kinds of things, those were kind of scary coming forward. And I know there's several people in this room that worked very hard with the government to ensure that they weren't going to be laser pointed in the wrong directions. And I think we've gotten there, that there's enough flex in the program for us to be able to do what we need to do to teach the kids the appropriate ways.
Can I just, you said that flex, and flex schools, that's the big thing, right? I wonder, is there any ability for us to be a little bit more bold and say, okay, we'll do a flex school, we'll do a classical academy as one of our schools, right? And aren't those popular now in the United States? They're growing in the United States as Catholic schools. Can we be that bold and do that kind of thing too? Not everywhere, obviously. I teach in a small town, but maybe we have half hour, or not a half hour, like a half day every week. We do classical academy. Where's that vision, or do we have that vision at the higher levels of Catholic education in the province that we've got a 2,000-year-old patrimony plus the ancient Greeks, etc. Why aren't we using this rather than going along with whatever the Alberta Education Department and Faculty of Education pop out?
So part of our challenge is time, like everybody else. I mean, you talk about flex time and those types of things. We have something called high school redesign, where we're allowed to organize our high schools a little differently. That we were caught in this CEU issue, where you're funded by CEUs, credit enrollment units, and now we have the opportunity to switch around our schools a little bit more, have maybe more classes, more opportunities for kids. So we have opportunities to do, maybe not as drastic as you're talking right now, but we do have opportunities to create different classes in our schools, more classes in our schools, more opportunities for our kids. Again, what you're talking about is pretty out there, but I think that we're working towards a lot of really good things that allow us, again, to ensure that our faith is first and foremost in our schools. And I know for us, that's a priority for us. Yes?
Thank you for your presentation. And I had the three comments I had to make. One question at the end. So the first is that we need to pray and fast for people like Mr. Strother, because he's at the front line. He's doing difficult things that those of us who've worked in universities don't really have to do. You can write books and you can write articles, but you have to make the kinds of prudential judgments that are harrowing at times. So first thing I just want to say is thank you for your sacrifices and the work that you are doing to promote the faith in a difficult time. So that's the first thing. I wanted to make two other comments, though, following up on these two gentlemen. So the first, in terms of statistics and metrics, in fact, there have been studies done. A lot more is done in in the United States that we can look to and apply here in terms of outcomes. But in Canada, a couple of years ago, Reginald Bibby, who is not a Bible-thumping conservative Catholic, so to speak, did the largest study to date on looking at outcomes, and what he found was in a way horrifying, or at least very sobering. So, in Catholic schools, this is now looking at 15-year-old students across the country. Okay, students in Catholic schools are more likely to believe in God than students in public secular schools. They're slightly more likely to be pro-life, but they're also more likely to fornicate and smoke marijuana. Isn't that interesting?
Beauty.
Beauty. Something like that. So, in fact, we do have metrics that we could look at that are sobering. In the United States last year, about 120 Catholic schools closed and 30 opened, more or less. Now, the Catholic schools that closed, demographics matter, they figure into it, but those that closed have been doing things as usual. In other words, they are following essentially a secular curriculum and putting lipstick on the pig. Those that are opening and are thriving are schools that are increasingly turning to a classical model. So I do wonder, why couldn't we have, as a pilot project, 1 or 2 academies in each city in Alberta, which take on the trivium, the quadrivium. We do have 2,000 years of a tradition. In the 1950s, there was a civil war that happened in the realm of education, and the good guys lost. Dewey won out. The people that won rejected explicitly a Christian and Catholic point of view. And the fact that more people don't know that in the education world is really a tragedy. And it's one reason why people of goodwill often feel very frustrated at the state of things. So, anyway, I just want to really thank you for your work, and to throw that out to you, to consider taking more seriously the riches of the tradition, because they are capable of answering to the kinds of philosophical views that are being taught in most education programs.
I appreciate that, and I know Andrea's taking tons of notes here, so this is good.
And Clearwater Academy.
I mean, there are academies you teach at Clearwater Academy, right? But again, it's a private school, so there's a difference there. So they get public funding to an extent, 70%, I believe, public funding, and then on top of that, are allowed to charge fees for their parents that are a lot higher than we're allowed to. So it's a different ball game when you look at charter schools, private schools, those types of things. So again, publicly funded Catholic education, we have some silos that we have to be part of, and that's a reality. But certainly we can look into some of the things you're talking about right now.
But you're always pulled in different directions, aren't you?
No question, no question. And we have a government that sometimes again, you're never 100% sure where they're going to be with Catholic education. I mean, education, if you look at the NDP right now, they've been amazing to education and to health. I mean, we have not had to cut back the way that we were going to have to cut back had another government gotten in. So we'll see what happens in the next election. But I know overall they've been positive to Catholic education. They haven't been oppressive, and they haven't been pushing down. They've got some policies out there that are a little scary in terms of GSAs and those types of things. But again, we've been able to work around and make sure that we've got our faith continuing to be first and foremost. I thought I saw another hand. Yes.
Just more kind of in response to some of the room, I come from a school system, and really want to thank you for your presentation. And I know can back up that Calgary Catholic is very much a leader in the province in this area, and I know that our board, the smaller board, has benefited from their work immensely. To the kind of Great Works conversation, I think there's a lot to the fact that the new curriculum is wide open. That's very good for us. We're piloting a project in our largest high school, 1,400 students, where all of the humanities courses came together last year for 2 weeks. We brought in the leaders and the experts to create great themes throughout religious studies, English, and social studies, focusing in on all Catholic works and drawing the humanities into kind of one integrated Christian humanities program that meet the Alberta education requirements, but at the same time draw on some of the great works of our tradition. We're trying it out this year, so I encourage your prayers of support for that. Maybe something that can be part of this initiative moving forward.
And I appreciate too, you had mentioned to pray for me, but it's sure not me. I mean, we've got people in the trenches that are doing amazing things. And again, I look throughout this room and I see different superintendents, and I see different people, and I see pastors that have worked with our schools, and they're amazing. Like the commitment of these people is absolutely astounding. And to live and to be part of that why, and the why is the big picture, right? If they really get the why, they're going to want Catholic education to thrive and be successful. And you know what you just mentioned there, I think the new curriculum is going to be good for us in the big picture, because it is going to leave us some space to fill in. And the space that we fill in, if we do it well, it's going to be good for us. Yes.
So I would agree that what makes Catholic schools Catholic are the teachers, because you could have a Catholic school in India where you have a completely Hindu population that are going to be attending, and they're there to deliver a Catholic.
You're right, yeah.
And so, and I'm a Catholic teacher, I'm administrator with Christ the Redeemer Catholic Schools. And the thing that weighs on me a lot, I mean, you have a faith day, we have our faith days, we can talk about whether it's one or two is more important, whatever, doesn't matter. And you have a means of permeating your curriculum, as does the other school division over there, right, with great things. But there's one thing to have a curriculum of what to teach, and then another thing to have a person who's personally knowledgeable in an area delivering that, which is why you would want a person whose background is in science delivering your science curriculum, as opposed to a person whose background is in physical education delivering it, that sort of thing. And certainly we have a general kind of teacher sort of thing in Alberta. But I guess, what does Calgary Catholic do for ongoing sort of catechesis of their teachers to help them grow and not just become more faithful, not just learn to trust God more, but really become more knowledgeable about these things, so that they can improvise on these fantastic curriculums that are permeated, and that they can see for themselves the overlaps between their own knowledge and discipline and their Catholicism?
So we have opportunities for our teachers, especially when they first come to us. They have to take. We have some thou shalts in terms of courses for religious education and understanding of our faith, those types of things as they go along. And I mentioned that instructional services department. We offer incredible professional development throughout the year on all kinds of different areas. So it's there if they want it. We have specialists at the senior high school teaching our religion programs. When you get to the K-9 programs, it's usually a generalist, but again, these should be Catholic teachers able to teach this programming, and that's important for us as well. So again, keeping the generalist informed and working through that is important to us. And again, we have the supports at all times of our instructional services consultants and whatever coming in to help out in the classroom areas. So we do have opportunities to help, and can you ever have enough? I don't know if you can ever have enough, so, but we do. I'm sorry, is that a number, or is that just a time to go?
Thank you very much.
All right.